Mayfly, from a book of old-fashioned fairy tales and fables by Chuma Ikenzi. Once upon a time, there was a mayfly caterpillar. Like all mayflies, it was born in May when the sun is shining bright and golden. But the mayfly caterpillar didn't care about the sunshine. "You can't eat the sun's golden rays," he said to himself, "so what business is it of mine?" His main concern and interest was food. When he was not eating, the caterpillar would wind himself into a ball, doing absolutely nothing. Comfort was the next most important thing to him. During his eating spree, the caterpillar would travel across fields and meadows to satisfy his unending hunger. One day, the caterpillar came to a pond where he saw a big frog sitting on a stone, reading a newspaper called the Swamp Community Sheet. Behind the frog was a shrub with very nice and juicy green leaves. On seeing the juicy leaves, the caterpillar thought they would make a nice meal. So the caterpillar walked quietly behind the frog and started climbing up his back. This tickled the frog, who immediately ran his long fingers down his back, scratching without looking up from the newspaper. The Swamp Community Daily was very well written and included entertaining local gossips. Nobody liked to be disturbed when reading it. The caterpillar's climb kept tickling until the frog finally turned and looked with some annoyance at the intruder. Since the frog read the community swamp sheet every day and was well informed, he immediately recognized the disrespectful creature as a mayfly caterpillar. "Yes, we are in the month of May," said the frog calmly to himself. "It says so in the newspaper that these strange creatures will be around in about this month. Nothing can be done about that." Then he continued reading, impatiently scratching his back, while the caterpillar kept climbing and tickling him with its many legs. The poor frog would have had to scratch for a long time if the caterpillar had not heard something that caught his attention. It sounded like the singing of many fine voices. Indeed, it was a choir of fairies dressed in white, wearing little golden crowns on their golden hair. The frog heard the singing too, but didn't look up. He'd also read in the Swamp Community Sheet that the fairies would be performing near the pond that day. But the caterpillar didn't know this. He was very curious and dropped down from the frog's back to crawl as fast as he could to where the fine voices were coming from. On seeing the caterpillar, the fairies fled in horror, all except for one, who stopped to look at the strange fellow. "You have many legs," she exclaimed. "Are you a prince under a spell?" "I have been waiting for a prince for a long time to give him my little crown." The caterpillar just stared at the fairy and said nothing. The fairy thought to herself, "It is definitely a spellbound prince. He has been burdened with many legs and has been made mute too." The fairy now felt sorrier for him. It must be awful to be bound in a body with so many legs and forced to crawl about on the ground, continued the fairy. If only she knew which witch had cast the spell, she would go plead with her on behalf of the prince. But she did not know. All she could do was try to help the prince in his present state. So she asked what she could do to ease his pain. The caterpillar thought the fairy was asking if he was hungry, so he said, "Yes, I'd like some." Then he lay on his back with his mouth wide open. Seeing his open mouth, the fairy figured that the caterpillar must be hungry. All she could think was that the spellbound prince must be starving. So she quickly went to get some of the juicy green leaves that had attracted the caterpillar to feed to her spellbound prince. After he had eaten, the caterpillar shut its mouth and tried to roll onto its legs. But by now it was too full to move and appeared frozen to the spot. So he decided to take the opportunity to take a nap. The fairy could do nothing to help but sit next to him patiently, waiting for the magic spell to wear off, so that he would turn back into a prince. She sat there patiently waiting for the caterpillar to wake up and her prince to emerge. When the bluebells rang at midnight, the little fairy thought for sure now must be the time. But the caterpillar neither heard the bluebells nor acknowledged the presence of the fairy. He remained rooted to the spot, still in a deep sleep. The fairy then wondered whether the caterpillar was bound by yet another spell, because now he had become quite still, and was wrapped in something that looked like a shroud. He did not even wake up to eat again. The caterpillar remained in this new state for some time, and the fairy remained, waiting protectively by the prince that she believed was under another spell. Bluebells rang at night, and the day burst forth with brilliant sunlight. Still, nothing happened. With each day, the fairy grew more concerned about the prince. She was afraid he had died from suffocation under the new spell that wrapped him up in a shroud, but she waited and hoped. Then one night, as the bluebells rang, the Mayfly caterpillar stirred, and his entire body began to shake. At last, thought the fairy with great anticipation, the prince is surely being released from the spell. But to her surprise and shock, 6 legs pierced through the shroud, followed by a pair of antennae. Then the entire shroud ripped open, and a winged creature emerged, a fully formed Mayfly. Without looking at or acknowledging the fairy, the Mayfly spread its wings and flew away. As he did so, his clumsy dangling legs knocked the golden crown off the fairy's head, and it broke into 1,000 pieces. The poor little fairy was left sitting there without a prince, and without the crown that she had so wanted to give to her prince. She broke down, putting her face in her hands, and wept bitterly. She sounded so sad that the frog, who was back again by the pond, looked up from the swamp community sheet and said to her with some pity, "Yes, today is the last day of May. It says so in the newspaper that these strange creatures will be flying about again. Nothing can be done about that." Then he turned the page, which was very easy for a frog because his fingers were always wet, and he continued to read. As the fairy was weeping, an angel descended from heaven and enveloped her within its wings. The next thing the frog saw was both of them flying up and away. The good Lord had taken the fairy into fairy heaven to live in peace and happiness. He had also replaced the broken crown with a radiant halo. The fairy was deeply grateful and asked what she had done to deserve this reward. She was then told that it was for her selfless kindness to a Mayfly, even though he had shown no appreciation or understanding for her kindness. This news was not in the community swamp sheet. Just as many deeds of kindness that never make the news are noticed and rewarded from above.